Yeah, no, I mean, I think the big thing I'm noticing with that, we find that a lot in general, though. Whenever we do anything new, that it's a result of collaboration with our clients. Generally, the more not just any client, it's the ones that are generally at like the heads of organizations or like they're VIPs in organizations, loud clients.
Generally speaking, that's how they got there, is because
Right,
they want something, they're not going to stop, and they keep going till they get it. But
right.
in this particular case, it was our quiet clients
Really?
that helped us out. It was the ones who attended the webinars that we put on.
Hmm.
And these clients, for those who are just joining us, these clients that we're talking about, we didn't just design our new ICD-10 interface, Reuven, with a couple of guys in a back room. We
Right.
we had design experts come in, and they helped us put requirements together and make sure that we weren't just looking at it from one perspective. And we absolutely consulted 30 doctors. And
Right.
then as soon as we started rolling it out in late August, early September, some doctors came to us and had some really, really great suggestions. And when you got to compare the interface that we designed on, let's just say our app 1, app 2 server, right, the stable versions
Mhm.
versus the other ones,
Right.
it was deafening. The response we got from everyone: no, the ones you guys are working on over here are clearly better. This is what we want.
Right.
And so I was just so grateful that we were ahead of the ball enough to be able to get that sort of information from our providers
Right.
in a timely way, before we went live. And that way we really able to make quite an impact in the ICD-10 world. So it was
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, I mean, when we were talking with Julie over at Physician Business Solutions, I mean, that was one of the big scares, right? We were, getting close to the completion of their product, the medically integrated app, and
Yep.
one of the big questions was, well, all this narrative is built for ICD-9, and what are we going to do in a month when we have ICD-10? We're going to have to redo it all. And I mean, my response was, yeah, of course you're going to have to redo your narrative to match ICD-10. I guess the benefit, though, is that on our side, the ICD-10 is going to be so much easier because whereas most systems will require you to always know which ICD-10 codes you're going to use, you can also group your ICD-10 codes on our side in like favorites according to procedures to make it so easy for your clinicians,
Yeah, three ways. Again, we've changed it quite a bit. First of all, you can favorite an individual code. Second of all, you can favorite a search, right, of certain key terms. And then third, you can create your own individual groups that you want that exactly mirrors the super bell we had put together for our doctors beforehand. Obviously, they had to make it a little bit more specific because your one code just
right?
turned into 6. So,
Right.
so now they've got that hierarchy that helps them move fast in the evals.
Right. Yeah,
So,
and I mean, one of the things I'm noticing, over the weekend, I was talking to a number of doctors, and I swear my wedding was just covered in doctors. It was
yeah, it
weird.
was.
Maybe it's because, well, never mind. Anyway, so covered in doctors, and
We all know why.
we all know why. Yeah, we're just not going to talk about it.
We just don't
Uh,
talk about it.
yeah, we just can't talk about it. But covered in doctors, just because I'm sick all the time. That's the reason. But and they're all psychiatrists, right? Um, but no, but I mean, cosmetic surgeons and
Your brother.
neurologist. My brother is who's a surgeon. But one of the big things that they talk about is the ridiculousness of some of these ICD-10 codes and how are they ever going to use them? I mean, the one that my brother and I were joking about was the jet engine one. I don't know if
Yep.
anybody knows this one. I think it's V97 point something
Saw
D.
that one.
It's being sucked through a jet engine. Subsequent visit. Subsequent encounter. At what point do you get to a subsequent encounter? I mean, how do you get from the first one to the second one, let alone?
I don't know how the first one happens, frankly, but
Yeah.
Again, that level of specificity has required, where a typical practice might have 8 or 9, categories, and then maybe a total of 40 codes
Right.
split up between those 8 or 9. We're
Right.
still seeing just about 13 to 15, categories set up, but now there's about 95, 80 codes, 80 to 95 codes in there, almost double. So I do anticipate that if we want to get into the radar of this, what to expect, moving forward, the blip on the radar is that, 6 months, a year, whenever Medicare decides to say, all right, this isn't specific enough, we anticipate that number to grow, perhaps even double again, Ruben. And so what we've done is we've actually built in already the ability to mark specific codes and move the pieces on your diagnosis code board around to make life a little bit more simple, so that when that secondary transition hits you, it's not going to knock you for a loop either. So we are prepared to get the specific code information to people, put validations in the system should you not see it in time, and bill out something that's not going to get paid, so we know that we don't waste 45 days for the insurance company to come back and say, oh, that's not the right code. So
Right.
we're already preparing for that. And as we learn more, we'll keep doing it. But the one thing I would encourage to anyone who listens to this webinar is, please give us your feedback. If you feel something would work a little bit better, I can tell you we did not have all the right answers, but we had the right tools to take that feedback, interpret it, and create something that so far, Ruben, everyone's really given us positive feedback on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of like, I think this is a perfect example of, I can't remember who said this, but you remember that quote, a user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not very good.
Yeah.
And I don't know who said it.
I don't know who said it either, but I've heard it not just once, many times.
Yeah, and it's a great saying, because, I mean, and this is the kind of thing that we're looking for in terms of feedback. In working on the core, which is our mobile library, our mobile apps, it's the same thing. When I look at iterations that our development team is putting together, the first question I ask myself is, can I pull this up and use it if I've never seen it before and there was no instruction? And if all I had was my understanding of how to use apps, and I think it's the same thing with ICD-10. You have to be able to look at an ICD-10 interface, and this is the complicated thing. You need to be able to look at something that has 69,000 parts and be able to just start using it without having to go through a long and lengthy training. Yeah, because I mean, from their perspective, you think I went to school for years. I have the clinical expertise. I know what I'm supposed to be doing clinically. So everything else should just support it, and it should be seamless and easy and not require me to invest hours of my time. And I think in general, it's a bad expectation to think that you're going to pick up something so easily, but there is some truth in that. You should be able to easily or more easily integrate things into your practice.
But you can't ask me, hey, Jason, is it that easy?
Right.
Hey, Charlie, ask somebody on my team. You can't ask me. The one thing I know is getting excellent feedback is our referrals have shot through the roof.
Right.
So I'm fairly certain that it is, I don't know if it's that easy, Ruben. I helped design it. I helped use it, teach it.
But that's the problem, right? Because, I'm noticing that with the apps is I use them. I go through so many iterations that at some point I'm no longer a good candidate to tell you whether it's easy enough to use, because I've used it so much and I've been so inundated in learning how it works that it's almost like the manual trying to decide if something is easy enough. You can't. You know too much about it to look at it with fresh eyes. Yeah. And so I think that's a great reason why it's so important that users of anything, but specifically of our tools, will take the opportunity the first or second time they use our tools to give us that feedback, to come back and say in whatever voice, to say this sucks or this is great. and then to give some specificity to their concerns.
All I really care about is if we get a this stinks remark, is just tell us why, and even better, what you would expect.
Yeah.
And we need it. We
Yeah.
can't put ourselves in your shoes all the time. We're trying.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the big thing. Sometimes there's this perception, and I've had this from practice owners that I've worked with. You know, when I was in Sarasota, and this I guess will be a plug for one of my clients, Maria Carlton, in Bradenton. She's got a similar situation, but she came to me and said, "Well, this isn't user friendly. Some piece of something." And I said, "What isn't user friendly?" And she said, "Well, it's just not." I said, "Okay. Well, I mean, that what do you feel about it that isn't user friendly?" And we kind of went in circles like this for a little bit until, and sometimes you just need to ask the right question, right? So at some point you ask the correct question that triggers a useful response, like, "Give me an example of something that you think is user friendly," right?
Yeah.
And then she went into, "Well, I think Gmail is really user friendly." I said, "Okay, well, let's see if I can draw some parallels to make it easier for you to transition, number one. But number two, let me understand what about this thing that you think is easy to use doesn't exist in one of our products, you know?" And in fact, what we found in the e-commerce platform in FBN Shop was not a bug, but something that should have been done a little bit differently. There was an email that I think could have had a better link in it. And as soon as we changed it, she was like, "Wow, okay, yeah, that's easy." You know, little things like that, I think, can have a huge impact on the user's experience.
And if it's something, that's a big change, obviously it's going to take time, energy, and resources to address it. But sometimes the suggestions are so simple that we can have them done very quickly.
Move this
And
button
it makes a big impact, because the workflow of the office. Do you mind if I kind of switch topics for a second?
No, go for it.
We work with a major franchising organization, and this franchising organization is having a problem, and their problem is unbilled visits.
Right.
Unbilled visits is a function of a lot of things, and at first glance you think, well, just bill out the visit, and nothing's ever that simple, and you know that. But
just fix the patient's problem. It's fine.
Yeah. It started with a suggestion. I don't recall who made it. It wasn't me. With when that practice is starting up, make it a requirement to have a computer in the room. And I said, "What do you mean they don't have computers in the room? How can they document their visit?" And again, I was the one asking the dumb question. They didn't have computers in the room. So there's no way to document and bill at the time of the visit when it happens. So it was a simple problem.
Right.
Move the computer from the office to the treatment room.
Right.
Fantastic. Great. Well, now we're worried about content. Well, let's get a guru in here who can create some macros, and they hired one, created some macros, made the entire organization really confident, and then they had a system that was in the right place, had the right contact, and then had the tools to bill within, for a follow-up visit, which is 98% of your visits, in 7 to 10 seconds.
Right.
So unbilled visits for all their new practices they're non-existent now. And we had a couple of suggestions just like that yesterday from a few of our employees who wanted to solve a similar problem, but it has to do with unbilled visits as well. Well, if you knew that at the time things were getting set up, and you had a conversation with them about the complexity of, let's just say an associate doctor that's in there that is in or out of network, you could solve all of these unbilled visit problems right in the beginning.
Right.
Well, yeah, we could. Well, why didn't we think of it 6 years? And I joked yesterday, this suggestion would have been great 6 years ago. And I was like, You're late, but we'll take it.
Yeah, you're late, but we'll take it. That's right. Where were you? Yeah. Yeah, and how often does that happen? I mean, you expect, how often does a client expect that you're going to anticipate your needs? It's like any relationship. A lot of people have the expectation that you're going to read their minds, and part of it is just being able to, take a step back, look at a relationship, on that level, and say, wait a second, do you really think or expect me to read your mind and make changes like that? The information has to come from somewhere. Where do you want it to come from? Where do you expect it's going to come from? If you have the idea, it's like coming up with an idea for an invention and thinking, well, somebody else will do it. Well, if somebody else does it, they're going to reap all the benefit, and you're going to be the one sitting on the couch going, well, I thought of that years ago. Well, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, getting off the couch is a big part of it, huh?
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, I just saw this recently. I can't remember the guy's name, but he owned 10% of Apple and sold it for $800.
Yeah, I saw that.
Back in the day when Apple was still a fledgling company. And his stock today would be worth, I mean, obviously with going public and everything, that would probably change. But if he kept 10% of the company, he'd be worth literally like $48 billion. Liquid. like,
yeah.
I mean, can you imagine just how that person must feel right now?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't put myself in those positions very often, but because money is not the goal of most of the providers that we work with.
Right.
I truly find their intentions. I keep saying this. They literally just want to help, and when we're trying to help them, we try and look through their eyes, because a lot of times you think unbilled visits is just a function of money, but it's also a function of, let's just say, compliance. They're putting their mission at risk because they're not hitting a certain button, or they're putting their family at risk because they're not hitting a certain button. But we want to anticipate those needs, and we do it when we can. But the bigger our network is, the more that we'll be able to interact with those people that give us those little ideas, those tweaks that we can make one place or another, that don't just help a single doctor or even just an organization of franchises, but hundreds and hundreds and soon thousands of practices at the rate we're growing.
Yeah, and the amazing thing I'm noticing is, people I don't know if they love to do this, but people will generally complain about something more than they'll applaud it, which is fine. Yeah. But I think one of the things that I love hearing, and it's interesting because I never hear it voluntarily. I always hear it when I'm in a practice, each month when I'm in Canton, or, when I travel anywhere else. When I'm there, one of the nicest things I hear is when somebody takes me through and shows me how they've adapted something to their way of practicing. How they've adapted our practice management tool, or how they've adapted e-commerce, or how they've adapted, like mobile devices. And what's great about that is it's kind of like when our system learns new billing rules. We get to take those experiences and translate them to other clients and actually use that as a way to help that client and say, well, you're doing this fantastic. Let me help you make it even better. It's just, it's an amazing thing where you see, I mean, the perfect example, you walk into an office and they start walking you around. They show you how they've put surfaces everywhere, and people have those, the handheld, right? So they can hold it from behind, and they're basically, everybody in the office is mobile. It's Canton, the practice, the medically integrated practice in Canton. That's what they do now. Nobody has a desk job anymore. Basically everybody walks around, and it's amazing because it feels more like a community than anything else now. Everybody's interacting with everybody. There are stations for things, but everybody, there's no more back office, front office management. It's just, people interacting and, people getting helped. It's just an amazing thing.
I think many members of our team on this side did read that book, If Disney Ran Your Hospital. I don't know if.
Yep.
And, yeah. Anticipating needs is a big part of, why Walt Disney World and all of their ventures are successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you gain more experience, you find it a little bit easier to anticipate needs, right?
Yeah.
As you get the momentum of a large organization, we're finding that it's easier to anticipate needs. And as those practices become more mobile, we are anticipating, and I know you specifically are anticipating the need, and I've been able to collaborate just briefly with you on that, having those apps that work more quickly in those areas that they need, like the scheduler, the documentation, etc. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
it's something we're trying to do over here, but we could always use a little bit of help.
yeah, and you know, I mean, with mobile devices, the amazing thing to me always is when people want to use a toy for a business purpose, for a professional purpose. You know, for example, they say, "Well, I want to use my iPhone to do my notes," and it's like, well, I mean, we might make an argument for the iPad Pro, you know, or a genuine iPad. But anything else, I mean, how are you going to have that view of what's going on with that patient on such a small screen? There's no way to not only know what's going on with the patient, but also be able to keep a truly compliant note. There's just too much that needs to be seen. And so, you know, and that was the challenge, I think, in putting together a mobile application, was being able to say, all right, we're not gonna make everybody happy, because some people are always going to think that they should be able to just use their iPhone for everything, and be able to say, but we can put it on a mobile device in such a way that it's an app, and it allows you to use practice management functions, documentation functions, apps, e-commerce, you know, even HIPAA compliant social media, which is our next big reveal. That's going to be the next part of our app. Is actually going to be very cool. And you know, the ability to tie all that together on a single device while you're with the patient, is just, it's invigorating, but it's really challenging, because you are, in a sense, alienating a population by saying, no, we're never going to support your iPhone because it's just impractical, you know. And we're not really going to want to support the same thing, Android phones, mini devices, mini tablet devices. It's impractical, because you're doing something that's not that simple. You're not playing Angry Birds. Quite frankly, that's the reality. You know, you're trying to save somebody's life, you're trying to improve somebody's quality of life. You need a device that can handle how they're doing, how they're progressing, and be able to make changes on the fly.
Tough conversation, though.
Yeah, tough conversation. I mean, I've had it a number of times now, and you know, sometimes it's great when people understand and they're like, "Yeah, you know, let me think about that. You're right. I think you're right about that." But most people will basically write you off. You know, they'll say, "Yeah, well, this person over here is doing it." And it's kind of like when, you know, a couple of years ago we had that situation where, you know, they said, well, this person over here is making my life easier, and then some practices decided they were going to go try it, and within a month or two they were like, oh man, this did not work at all.
It was a mistake.
Help.
Yeah.
You know.
Again, but sometimes the grass is greener. You know, sometimes it is, and you know, we've seen organizations that you know, have failed to keep up with the needs, anticipation of, or not, right? They didn't meet the needs, and they fell by the wayside. I mean, look at Uber with taxi companies.
Yeah.
You know,
Huge.
it's, you know, how many businesses have gone out because of Uber? I don't. It's heartbreaking in one sense, but that was the revolution, right?
But
That's
how
what
many
took
people?
place.
But how many people? Yeah, and but on the other side, how many people were liberated by that? You know, the ability to not be governed by a company but be independent. It's a difficult thing to be in.
It is. It's a challenging transition whenever something like that happens. So
You're going to lose jobs. You're going to create jobs in another way, but some people are resistant to that. I mean, it's like energy change, you know. And
but there's tension when that happens, and sometimes you could even say, I don't know, hurt feelings, because when that client base left us, you know, I had the tendency to take it personally, right?
Of course.
And then when they came back, I didn't do this, but I wanted to say, I told you, but we didn't know. They could have gone over there and found out something better, but they did come back with some suggestions for us.
Yeah.
We took them, and we're both better for it now.
Right.
And so
Not that we're suggesting that happened a lot, but
yeah, right.
everybody leave and come back in 2 months and tell us what your experience was like.
I wish it was only 2 months. It was about 6. And
Oh yeah, no, well the whole transition, yeah, absolutely. We had some people come back within just a few weeks.
yeah, that's right.
Some
That's right.
people basically just left and said a week later or 2 weeks later, oh no, mistake. The
Yeah.
commercial was good. The preview was good, but the movie sucked.
Yeah.
That's what everybody's afraid of with that new Star Wars movie. Oh
I'm
man,
a lifetime Star Wars fan. I am also fearing that. Again, I know maybe not the time or the place, but
cautiously optimistic.
I was let down with Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. And well, I mean, come on. But what are you going to do? It's with practice owners, one of the last things that I was thinking about this morning was social media. And one of the things that I'm seeing, and I talk all the time, a friend of mine, John Murdoch, who works at a law firm in New Jersey and helps us out a lot. And, every Monday he posts or sends out to all of his friends and clients and everything, he calls it his Murdoch's Monday memo. I think that's what it is. Monday Murdoch memo, something like that. Yep. But basically, it's a quick 1 or 2 sentence thing that practice owners should be thinking about. And one of the things I asked him about was social media, because one of the things I see all the time, and if this is you, listen very closely, I see this all the time. Practice owners will post images of x-rays, will post cases that they're working on, situations that they're dealing with, between themselves in closed groups or open groups on Facebook that are populated by clinicians looking for advice from their colleagues. So a pure effort, right? Something that is
trying to help people.
Yeah, coming from the perfect place. But his big thing was, he said, "Yeah, that's incredibly illegal. That is probably one of the most that's probably the easiest way for HIPAA to bite you in the ass." The ability imagine that as you're posting that to Facebook, you're in the practice, a patient walks by, sees you, does that, reports you, you lose your license literally the next day. I mean, we were talking about it, and I was in shock because I've seen this for years. For years working with organizations that have these closed groups on Facebook where they share this kind of information and they go through this clinical stuff, and and it turns out that they're unknowingly breaking law by sharing,
by trying to help them.
By trying to help their patients. It's terrible. And so the first instinct I had was, I have to tell everybody, right? I have to warn everybody. And but then I thought, well, I definitely have to warn everyone, but shouldn't I warn some people with an alternative? Because if you just complain about something without a suggestion,
it's not useful.
Man, you're an annoying person, right? I hate those people so much. This is, oh man, you're exercising, you're going to hurt yourself. All right, well, until you come up with a better way for me to not, be overweight, I'm going to keep doing it. So, and so that's part of our big release that's coming up by the end of the year in conjunction with our core app is HIPAA compliant social media, the ability to tie into your Facebook so that you can still have that connection, so that you can still, for example, in your private group on Facebook, say, hey, on core, I have a HIPAA protected post. I'm looking for some feedback on a case I'm working on. That way people can just toggle into the app directly into that post and see the x-ray, see whatever. And that way, if a patient says, hey, why are you posting x-rays on social media? Say, actually, this is only for clinicians. And it's only for clinicians looking for, a consult or something like that, looking for their colleagues' feedback on a case they're working on, or they're working with their coaches on helping them grow their practice, or they're working with their coach on our side. They're using our apps, our technology, and they're working with their coach, like Heather, like Charlie, those people, trying to work on making things better. So, I mean, this to me presents a really convenient option to maintain a tie-in to the existing social media, while at the same time ending what is an incredibly illegal behavior.
Again, everybody hates when somebody says don't do that. Well, what else should I do? Everyone hates that. I agree.
Yeah.
In this particular case, we just need a couple of people to start using it, and I think it'll take off.
And that's the thing. And it's, we're finding that with the rest of the core app, it's that thing, it's like a user interface is a bad joke. You got to be able to make something easy enough to use. And, I think that's kind of a theme for today. If there were a theme for today.
If there were themes for today, yeah, it would be.
Things have to be easy enough to use so that, they don't need explanation.
Well, the subplot then would be open your mouth. Let us know. Start the conversation. Not all conversations will lead to big changes. If you're the only one looking for it, but most of the time you're not.
Yeah,
you're not the only one looking for it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if you are the only one thinking about it, well, it's just a matter of time. If it's a serious concern, it's just a matter of time until other people run into it.
Yep.
There's no reason not to say something. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't checked out the pop-in, check it out. We're running specials on things during every live cast, so check that out. And we're going to keep going. I mean, ICD-10 is a big deal, so we're going to keep attacking it from every direction. And I think as we start to see results coming in for performance, I think we'll start to share some of that to see just how well our team, our technology, our products are doing in supporting our clients, because I think that's going to be a good indication of how things are going, not just for our clients, for our technology, but also in general for ICD-10,
For sure.
So thanks, everybody. And of course, any questions, post them, and we will do our best to answer them either directly through social media or here during our live casts. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.